Just when the world thought the Middle East was finally stepping back from the brink, everything changed. The fragile calm that had settled over the region after weeks of tension has been shattered. Missiles are once again lighting up the night sky. Air raid sirens are echoing through major cities. Military commanders are on high alert, and governments around the world are watching events unfold with growing concern. What seemed only days ago like a conflict moving toward diplomacy has suddenly transformed into a dangerous new phase of direct confrontation. This is not just another military exchange. This is a moment that could reshape the balance of power across the Middle East and send shockwaves through the global economy. The question now is no longer whether tensions are rising. The question is how far this escalation will go before someone decides to pull back. And at this moment, there are very few signs that either side is ready to do that. The latest escalation began after Israeli military actions linked to targets in Beirut triggered a fierce response from Iran. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched a barrage of ballistic missiles toward Israel, marking one of the most serious escalations seen since the fragile ceasefire that emerged earlier this year. Across Israeli cities, warning sirens filled the air. Residents rushed toward shelters. Military defense systems activated within seconds. Explosions were reported as interceptor missiles raced into the sky, attempting to neutralize incoming threats. For ordinary civilians, it was a terrifying reminder that the conflict was far from over. For political leaders, it was confirmation that the region had entered another dangerous chapter. But Iran's missile attacks were only the beginning. Israel quickly responded with military force of its own. Israeli aircraft targeted military installations deep inside Iran, striking locations in central and western regions of the country. Suddenly, what had been a tense standoff transformed into a direct exchange of fire between two regional powers. What makes this moment especially alarming is that the conflict is becoming increasingly direct. For years, much of the confrontation between Iran and Israel was carried out through proxy groups, regional allies, and indirect operations. But now the world is witnessing something very different. Missiles are being exchanged openly, military actions are being acknowledged publicly, and both governments appear determined to demonstrate strength rather than restraint. Every strike creates pressure for a response. Every response creates pressure for escalation. It becomes a cycle that grows more dangerous with each passing day. The deeper the conflict moves into direct confrontation, the smaller the space becomes for diplomacy and compromise. The situation becomes even more complicated when looking beyond Iran and Israel. Yemen's Houthi movement has once again entered the picture, launching attacks that force Israeli defense systems to divide their attention between multiple threats. Military planners across the region are preparing for scenarios that only weeks ago seemed unlikely. Intelligence agencies are monitoring developments around the clock. Neighboring governments are increasing security measures. Saudi Arabia has already issued alerts around strategic locations connected to American military assets. These actions reveal a growing fear that the conflict could spread beyond its current boundaries. Regional leaders understand that once a crisis reaches a certain level, controlling its direction becomes significantly harder. The economic consequences are equally troubling. One of the world's most important maritime corridors now sits under increasing pressure. The Strait of Hormuz remains a critical route for global energy supplies, and any disruption there immediately raises concerns in financial markets. Reports of drone activity, military deployments, and security operations have heightened fears that energy transportation could face additional challenges. Even the possibility of disruptions creates uncertainty. Oil traders are watching every development. Governments dependent on imported energy are calculating potential impacts. Consumers around the world could ultimately feel the effects through higher fuel costs and increased inflation. A conflict that begins with missiles in the Middle East rarely remains confined to the battlefield. Its consequences often travel across continents through supply chains, energy markets, and economic systems. Meanwhile, diplomatic efforts that once offered hope now appear increasingly fragile. The United States has been actively involved in attempts to reduce tensions. Discussions surrounding ceasefire arrangements and regional stability have taken place behind closed doors for months. Yet each new attack pushes those efforts further from success. One major obstacle remains the dispute surrounding billions of dollars in frozen Iranian assets. Washington's refusal to release those funds has become another source of friction. American officials view the issue through the lens of regional security and accountability. Iranian leaders view it as economic pressure and political leverage. As positions harden, the possibility of compromise becomes more difficult. Even mediators attempting to bridge the gap have struggled to make meaningful progress. At the center of this crisis lies a larger struggle for influence. Iran wants to demonstrate that it cannot be intimidated and that it remains capable of projecting power throughout the region. Israel wants to show that attacks against its interests will carry significant consequences. Both sides are sending messages not only to each other, but also to allies, rivals, and international observers. Strength matters, credibility matters, deterrence matters. Political leaders understand that perceptions can be as important as military outcomes. This reality often makes de-escalation difficult because neither side wants to appear weak at a moment when the entire world is watching. What makes the current situation particularly dangerous is the collapse of expectations. Only recently, there were growing hopes that diplomacy might gain momentum. Analysts spoke about opportunities for negotiations. Governments explored pathways toward reducing tensions. Some believed the worst phase of the crisis had already passed. Those assumptions now appear increasingly fragile. The return of missile exchanges has dramatically altered the conversation. Instead of discussing peace, policymakers are once again discussing escalation. Instead of focusing on negotiations, military planners are preparing for additional confrontations. The mood has shifted from cautious optimism to renewed uncertainty. And that uncertainty extends far beyond the Middle East. Energy markets are reacting, investors are reacting, governments are reacting. Every new headline creates fresh questions about what comes next. Will the conflict remain limited? Will additional regional actors become involved? Could global powers be drawn into a broader confrontation? No one can answer those questions with confidence. That uncertainty itself has become one of the most dangerous aspects of the crisis, because history has repeatedly shown that conflicts often become most unpredictable at the very moment leaders believe they can control them. For now, the world watches and waits. Military forces remain on alert. Diplomats continue their efforts. Markets assess the risks. Ordinary citizens hope that cooler heads will prevail. Yet beneath the surface, a deeper concern continues to grow. This may not simply be another temporary flare-up. It may be the beginning of a larger struggle that could redefine regional politics, reshape global energy markets, and challenge the stability of an already fragile international order. The coming days may determine whether this confrontation slows down or accelerates. And if recent events are any indication, the next chapter could be even more consequential than the one that has just begun.